Today I want to share with you 10 bargains you should be buying now at Trader Joe's for your pantry. Hi sweet friends, I'm Mary and welcome to Mary's Nest, where I teach traditional cooking skills for making nutrient-dense foods like bone broth, ferment, sourdough, and more. So if you enjoy learning how to be a modern pioneer in the kitchen, consider subscribing to my channel and don't forget to click on the little notification bell below. That'll let you know every time I upload a new video. Now the first thing I want to mention, if at any time you want to jump ahead, be sure to open the description underneath this video where I'll have timestamps listing everything I'm going to cover. And the reason I like to put timestamps in my videos, especially ones like this, is because I always like to take a few minutes in the beginning to talk to the beginner. Now in previous videos, I've showed you how to shop for traditional foods, whole foods, real foods at places like Costco and Sam's, my local grocery store, hopefully which might be somewhat similar to your local grocery store, as well as Walmart. But many of you had asked me, could you do some sort of a haul, so to speak, at Trader Joe's and show us what you would buy in terms of real foods at that store? Now, if you're interested in seeing those other videos where I went to the various other stores, I'll be sure to link to that in the iCards and in the description below. And if I ever run out of space, I'll always put everything in the pinned comment. Also in this video, I do cover some organic products, because after I shopped at Walmart, some of you had asked me, Mary, could you shop at other stores that have more organic products so that you can show us those options as well? And I'm always happy to do that. They sometimes are a little more expensive, so I always like to include the non-organic versions as well. Now in this video, I'm going to cover both perishable foods as well as non-perishable foods. So we're going to cover the entire Four Corners Pantry. And if you're a beginner, the Four Corners Pantry basically refers to all the different places in our home where we usually store food. The first corner is your working pantry. That's something that you generally access on a regular basis and contains non-perishable foods. The second corner is your refrigerator, and the third corner is your freezer. And the fourth corner is your extended pantry, or what we nickname the prepper pantry. And the prepper pantry basically stocks backup foods, non-perishable foods, that we can use to restock our working pantry. And if the concept of a prepper pantry is new to you, don't worry, I have an extensive playlist where I cover why we need a prepper pantry, how to stock your prepper pantry with real food, and how to do it on $5 extra a week added to your grocery budget. Plus, I also include the best ways to store your food. And I'll be sure to link to that playlist in the iCards and in the description below. Now, also in that playlist, I include a video on how to accelerate the process of stocking your prepper pantry, because many of you have told me that you don't necessarily want to do the $5 a week. That's kind of the slow and steady way. You kind of want to get a week's worth or more, maybe a month's worth in your prepper pantry, and you want to do it right away. And I show you a very easy and simple way to do it, yet to still stay within your budget. So be sure to check that out if you want to accelerate the process. Also, I want to mention that if you open the description underneath this video, there'll be a link that'll take you over to my website. And when you're over there, you can download my free 36-page essential, what I call essential traditional foods pantry list. And that can help you with knowing what you want to stock in your whole Four Corners pantry. And that list is exceptionally helpful if you're at the beginning of your journey transitioning from a processed foods kitchen, one where you buy a lot of prepackaged or processed foods, and you're on your journey to creating more of a traditional foods kitchen. That list lists for you things you may want to consider buying, as well as links to all kinds of recipes for how to use the foods you buy. Alrighty, well now let's get started and go over the 10 bargains you should be buying at Trader Joe's to stock your pantry. And those of you who have been with me for a while know when I say 10 of something, I'm often referring to 10 categories. So you're going to get more than you anticipated. Plus, I've got some bonus items at the end, which you really don't want to miss. Well, I think if you know me by now, the girl with 2 coffee pots is definitely going to start with coffee. Well, I was completely taken aback by how reasonable coffee is at Trader Joe's. It was even considerably lower in price than what I can buy at my local grocery store, which usually has wonderful bargains. This first coffee is a medium roast and it's a 14-ounce bag, so not quite a pound, but 14 ounces of ground coffee, and it is ground coffee. I like to buy ground coffee on occasion as opposed to the beans, especially for those times when I'm just maybe a little lazy and I don't feel like grinding coffee. But for 14 ounces, this was only $4.99. And the best buy date is through the end of January 2023, so you could definitely stock up on this. And this was their organic version, also a medium roast, and this is also 14 ounces. So a little less than a pound, but this was only $6.49. So for both non-organic and organic, I thought these were great prices. And the best buy date on this one, I believe, yes, it's through the end of the year, through December 2022. So depending on how much coffee you drink and how often, we drink it every day, this is a good buy and something that you can stock up on if you like to get the organic coffee. And again, this is a ground coffee. Our next bargain, or I should say bargains, are condiments. Now, I want to mention about all the bargains that I found at Trader Joe's. I was very impressed at how many of the things came in at the same price or sometimes even less than the bargains that I had found at Walmart. So whether you have a Walmart near you or whether you have a Trader Joe's near you, I think that you can really find some wonderful bargains when it comes to real foods. Now, when it comes to condiments, I show you how to make a lot of these things homemade. Not olive oil, but of course ketchup and mustard and apple cider vinegar. However, there's something that I want to mention, and not just about condiments, but about everything when it comes to stocking our Four Corners pantry. And that is, even though we can make a lot of these things homemade, I always recommend having backups that you've purchased at the store, because there may be a lot of circumstances where you simply can't make some things homemade. You may simply not be able to find the ingredients that you need to get started to making these things homemade. But also, sometimes you might just be tired. Sometimes you might just be very busy. And sometimes you may just want to grab something out of your fridge or your pantry that's all ready to go. So often you hear the expression, people talk about multiple streams of income. When it comes to being a modern pioneer in the kitchen, we want to have multiple streams of food. So certainly have all of your homemade things and your home canned goods, but never feel bad about also having store-bought goods that you use as your backups. All of this is very important, and it's all part of being a well-prepared modern pioneer in the kitchen who knows how to stock a Four Corners pantry. Now, the first one I want to talk about is ketchup. Now, we eat a lot of ketchup in our house, especially when our son is home. He loves it with fried potatoes. But I also like to make fermented ketchup. But that does take a little time and energy, and to have the tomato paste or the tomatoes, depending on how you're going to start the whole process. But if you don't eat a lot of ketchup, then I highly recommend keeping some ketchup, some store-bought ketchup on hand. And this actually is an organic ketchup, which I thought was a very good buy at Trader Joe's. I really thought it was a bargain. It was only $1.99. And the best buy date on this is a year from now. So this is definitely a wonderful item to keep in your pantry, and something that even if you just use a little, has a good shelf life and will last you a while even after you put it in your refrigerator. Next is Dijon mustard. I love having Dijon mustard on hand because it's great for making salad dressings and also using in marinades. Now, along with my video on how to make fermented ketchup, I also show you how to make fermented mustard. But again, let's always make sure we have backups. And this is a 13-ounce jar of Dijon mustard, and it was only $1.69. I'm confident if you price this at your local grocery store, this is going to come in at a very good buy at $1.69 for Dijon mustard. And this has very nice ingredients: water, mustard seeds, distilled vinegar, a little white wine, and salt. You can't beat that. And those of you who like to completely avoid sugar will really like this brand, because I know at my local grocery store, some of the Dijon mustards do add sugar. So if you're really trying to avoid sugar, this is a wonderful item to pick up. I also thought this minced garlic was so clever. Once you open this, you do need to keep this in your refrigerator, as you would want to with your other condiments. But how clever, when you feel a little tired and you don't feel like crushing and chopping up a lot of garlic, you can just have this at the ready. And all this chopped garlic for $1.99, you can't go wrong. This is an 8-ounce jar of chopped garlic, $1.99. That's a bargain. And when it comes to apple cider vinegar, specifically raw apple cider vinegar, this is very easy to make on your own, and especially if you've got scraps, then it's a real money saver. And I have a 3-part series of videos where I show you the whole 30-day process, which is actually very easy. The apples are doing the work. You don't have to do much. But I show you the whole process from start to finish. And so you can make this yourself. But I always have backup. I always have backup store-bought raw apple cider vinegar because it's something I never want to run out of. Raw apple cider vinegar is wonderful for making salad dressings. It's wonderful for adding to a little bit of honey to soothe the sore throat. It's wonderful mixed in water to help if you have acid indigestion. This is just one of those all-purpose foods and cure-alls. And this is a little more than 16 fluid ounces, and it was only $2.49, which is a very good buy. This again beats the price at my local grocery store. And what I like about this brand is that it is raw and it contains the mother. And that's what you always want to look for whenever you're buying apple cider vinegar, because that's what makes this such a gem. It makes it rich in probiotics. And what are probiotics? They're good bacteria. And good bacteria is wonderful for our digestive system. And the healthier our digestive system, our gut, as you've often maybe heard it referred to, the healthier we are. That's what scientists tell us. So the more good probiotics that we can get into our system, the better. And what easier way than mixed with some honey or made into a salad dressing? There's always wonderful ways to work this into our diets. Next, I want to talk about olive oil. Now, in my Walmart video of non-perishable foods, which I'll definitely link to that for you, I show an olive oil that was very reasonably priced, but it wasn't organic. And so some of you had asked me, what would I pick if I was picking an organic or shopping for an affordably priced organic olive oil? Now, when it comes to olive oil, Trader Joe's had an extensive selection of olive oils, both organic and non-organic, and overall they were relatively reasonably priced. Now, this is over 16 fluid ounces. It's almost 17 fluid ounces, and it's 100% Italian olive oil. It is organic, it's extra virgin, and it's cold pressed. So it has all sort of the bells and whistles that you look for when you're trying to find a good quality olive oil. And this came in at $5.99. I don't think that price can be beat anywhere. So I thought this was a wonderful bargain. And olive oil is one of those traditional foods that I love having in my kitchen. Not only is it great for salad dressings, of course, but I use it to cook with. I use it as a moisturizer, and you may be surprised, you can even use a little olive oil to brush your teeth, and it's actually very good for your gums. How about that? So if you're running a traditional foods kitchen, be sure to include olive oil. Item number 3, dairy and alternative dairy. Now, you know I'll often tell you to just buy milk because you can pretty much make everything else homemade. However, as we mentioned earlier, it's always good to have backups in your refrigerator when it comes to dairy items. And for alternate dairy, I've got something here in a can, which we'll discuss in a minute, but I tend to not buy things like oat milk and almond milk, and it's really for various reasons, because I feel that the way they're prepared and then packaged and sold at the grocery store, as opposed to something that we would make homemade, is not as nutritious as it should be. It's not, in my humble opinion, properly prepared to decrease anti-nutrients and increase nutrients. However, when it comes to alternate dairy, I do like coconut milk. Coconut milk is high in saturated fat, which is wonderful for nourishing our brains. So if traditional dairy isn't an option for you, coconut milk is a great alternative. Now, this can is 13.5 fluid ounces, and it was $1.69, which is a pretty good buy. Now, can you get a better bargain if you buy this in bulk in a 6-pack box at some of the big box stores like Costco? Yes, that'll reduce the per ounce price. But if that's not an option to you and you're just buying coconut milk at 1 can at a time, then this is a great buy, and it's organic. Now let's talk about the milk at Trader Joe's. If you saw my video about Walmart, I bought their regular milk. I didn't buy an organic milk. And the reason was the organic milk that they sell, or at least they sold at the Walmart that I was at, was not only pasteurized, it was also ultra pasteurized. And I really try to avoid buying ultra pasteurized milk. But don't worry, I don't want you to worry if all you can find is ultra pasteurized milk. That's why I have a lot of videos where I show you how to improve the nutrition that has been destroyed in milk through the pasteurization process, or even worse, the ultra pasteurization process. But you can culture whatever milk you can find and improve its nutrition. But what I want to talk about here is that my first choice for milk is always raw milk. But I know that's not available to many of you, or it's something that maybe you're just not quite ready to buy. But in any event, this was excellent because it was organic and it was only pasteurized, not ultra pasteurized. Now it is homogenized, which means that the cream and the milk have gone through a process that I'm not crazy about, but it's a very common process that makes the cream and the milk stay blended. If you can ever find milk that is organic, low temp pasteurized, and not homogenized, that's a wonderful choice. But for organic milk, at $5.99 for this entire gallon, that was a good buy, and it was similar in price to the price of the organic milk at Walmart, but it wasn't ultra pasteurized, so I thought this was even better. Now, if you have this milk and you have a little plain yogurt, you can start making your own yogurt. And I show you how to do that. All you need is a bowl, no fancy machinery, nothing like that. And then once you make your own yogurt, you never have to buy yogurt again. You can simply use your own yogurt to culture your next batch of homemade yogurt. You can also use your milk to make homemade cottage cheese. You can use it to make homemade ricotta cheese. There's a lot of things you can do. And when you have your homemade yogurt or even store-bought yogurt, you can strain it. And I show you how over the course of a couple of days to make somewhat of a mock cream cheese that's wonderful to have in your refrigerator. So there's a lot that you can do, especially when you just start with milk and milk that you then go on to culture and make cream cheese. And if you buy cream, you can certainly make your own sour cream. I show you how to do that and to culture it. I also show you how to make butter. But as we said, it's always wonderful to have all of these things as backups in your fridge, including cream cheese, when you can find it. This has been tough to find lately. So as I said, this was $5.99. I thought this was a very good buy for a gallon of whole milk. And oh, I don't think I mentioned that. This is whole milk. I always recommend buying whole milk. Now, this yogurt was $3.49, but I really liked this option. This is plain yogurt, which if I buy yogurt, I always like to buy plain yogurt. It's also full-fat yogurt, which I always recommend. Now, the yogurt that I was able to find at Walmart was less expensive, but it wasn't organic, and all I could find there was low-fat or fat-free yogurt. But not only was this organic, it's also from milk that's not been homogenized. So what happens when you culture milk that's not been homogenized? The cream floats to the top, and that also gets cultured, and it gives that wonderful, as they say here, cream top plain yogurt. Also, not only is this organic, this is milk that's been taken from cows that have been 100% grass-fed. And milk that comes from, or any dairy that's made from milk that comes from cows that have been grass-fed, is very high in something, the abbreviation is CLA, and you'll have to forgive my pronunciation if it's not correct, but it's something along the lines of conjugated linolenic acid. And that is very nutritious for the human body. And it's something that we don't get as much as our ancestors used to get, because a lot of cows are raised in more of a large commercial dairy environment where they may be eating feed as opposed to grass. But cows that are raised out in pasture and eating grass have very high amounts of this CLA in their fat. And if you click on the link that'll take you over to my website, I'll have a corresponding blog post that'll go into a lot more detail about all of the foods that I'm talking about and their nutritional value. And I'll share more with you over there about all the benefits that CLA can do for our bodies. So if you're not in the process of making your own yogurt as somewhat of a routine, and you want to be able to buy yogurt, this is very high quality, and for $3.49, this is a pretty good buy. Now this is whole milk ricotta, and again, I always tell you to buy the whole milk versions because the good fats are good for our brains. Now this is 1 pound of whole milk ricotta, and it was only $2.99. That I found was a very good bargain. If you're not familiar with ricotta cheese, it's a very fine cheese. Just imagine if you had put cottage cheese in a blender. That's kind of the consistency of ricotta cheese. And it's used in a lot of Italian recipes. And I always love having at least one container in my refrigerator if I've not been able to make my own version homemade. And this is organic sour cream, and it is 16 ounces. It's 1 pound of organic sour cream, and it was only $2.99. That's a really good bargain. And sour cream is wonderful because you can use it in so many things, making casseroles, making salad dressings, making dips. It's a wonderful, versatile ingredient to have on hand. And for $2.99, that's a bargain for 1 pound, 16 ounces of sour cream, and organic. Now, speaking of Italian cheeses like ricotta, this is mascarpone or mascarpone. This is a wonderful cheese. It's very similar to American cream cheese, but generally there's no salt in it. So it makes it very versatile to use in either a sweet recipe like stuffing a cannoli or a savory recipe. And this is an 8-ounce container. It's generally sold, for the most part, what I've seen, in 8-ounce containers, and it's normally very expensive. I've seen this at my own local grocery store for $7.99, and I was shocked. This was just $2.99 at Trader Joe's. This is really a bargain. And the best by date is through the end of July, so you could stock up on a couple of these and definitely use them between now and July. Now this is an 8-ounce block of American cream cheese, the American style of cream cheese, so this does have salt in it. And this was just $1.69, which I felt was a very good buy. And if this is of interest to you, they do have a little note up here that says that this cream cheese was made from milk that came from cows that had not been given any hormones. So although this cream cheese isn't organic, the cows have not been given the RBST hormone. So that's something to consider when you're looking for cream cheese. Next, let's talk about butter. Now this is 8 ounces of butter, and you'll see this is the equivalent of basically 2 sticks of butter. Now butter in general can tend to lean on the more expensive side. But this is an excellent buy for New Zealand butter because this is made from milk that came from grass-fed cows. Now technically, although they say made from milk, I think we all know that they're skimming the cream off the milk and making the butter from the cream. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the reason why having any kind of dairy from cows that are grass-fed is because it is high in that nutrient CLA, which is very good for us. Now this butter, 8 ounces, was $3.29, and that's a good buy for grass-fed butter. The only thing that I wasn't crazy about was that it is salted butter. I prefer to buy unsalted butter. However, to be able to get New Zealand butter for $3.29 is a bargain. And this was 20 cents less than 8 ounces of Kerrygold butter, the Irish butter that's also from cows that have been grass-fed, that I like very much. And that comes in an unsalted and a salted version. So if you want to pay 20 more cents and pay $3.49 for 8 ounces of grass-fed butter, you can certainly do that at Trader Joe's. But if you buy this salted New Zealand butter, just remember that if you use this in baking, you're going to need to adjust the salt maybe by about half in your recipes that call for salt. But I think this is going to be luscious on toasted sourdough bread, preferably homemade sourdough bread. Now, I want to mention, this is more of a little bit of a treat. This is chèvre, which is a goat's milk cheese. And I really couldn't pass this up. I thought this was quite a good buy for goat's milk cheese. And it was $2.99. And they had two varieties. They had this one with honey, or they had a plain one. And they were both the same price, so I decided to treat myself and get the one with honey. Well, let me go get these back into the refrigerator and we'll move on. Bargain item number 4, large eggs. Now these large eggs were $1.99, and that was very price competitive with Walmart, which had a dozen large eggs for $1.96. So $1.96, $1.99, depending on where you shop, they're pretty close in price. And for a dozen eggs, $1.99 is a really good bargain today. Now Trader Joe's does have organic eggs and eggs from chickens that are raised in pasture and so on and so forth, but their best buy is just on traditionally raised eggs. And I think if you're on a tight budget, $1.99 for a dozen eggs is fantastic. You can do so much with eggs. Breakfast, obviously, breakfast for dinner, which is always fun and an easy dinner to throw together. You can make a quiche, you can use these for baking, you can make a frittata. There's a lot you can do with a dozen eggs. So definitely, if you're on a tight budget, the eggs at Trader Joe's or the eggs at Walmart for in the $1.99 range are an excellent bargain. Item number 5, flax seeds. Now these are golden flax seeds. There are two types of flax seeds, golden flax seeds and brown flax seeds. They're relatively similar in nutrients. The brown flax seeds may be slightly more nutritious, but overall, whether you can find the golden or the brown, they're definitely worth stocking in your pantry. And if you saw my video on superfoods to stock, then you know I include flax seeds as one of those options. Flax seeds are so high in many nutrients, and they're also high in fiber. They're rich in omega-3s, which are wonderful for our blood and our brain, or just bodies in general. The fat in flax seeds is similar, the omega-3s, to what you find in fishes like salmon. And I think we've all heard about how good omega-3s in salmon are for us. But what I liked about this bag of flax seeds, as I said, it's 15 ounces, and that's almost a pound, and it was $2.99. And generally, flax seeds may be at a pound. If you find a 16-ounce bag, it may be closer to $5. So I thought this was an excellent bargain. And you really want to stock the seeds as opposed to the seeds that have already been ground for you into a flaxseed meal. And the reason is the fats in flax seeds are very perishable. And once you grind them, you expose those fats to the air, and they're more likely to go rancid, even when you put them in your refrigerator or freezer. So if you stock the seeds, you can easily stock those in your working pantry or your extended pantry, and they have an excellent shelf life. These have a best buy date well beyond a year from today. And then really to make the most of these, all you really need is one of those little spice grinders, and they're very affordable. I've even found mine at thrift shops. And once you grind these, you can sprinkle this on top of cereal, on top of salads. You can also use it in baked goods. And by grinding up your seeds, not only are they fresh, the meal is very fresh, it also makes it easier to absorb the nutrients from the flax seeds. Not only the omega-3s, but also the potassium, the iron, and the calcium, which flax seeds are very rich in. Item number 6, or items, peanut butter and jams. This is 16 ounces of peanut butter, a full 1 pound, and it was only $1.99. Now, Trader Joe's had an excellent selection of peanut butter. They had organic and regular. They also had creamy or crunchy of both those varieties, organic and regular. I decided to get the crunchy, salted peanut butter that was just the regular peanut butter, not the organic peanut butter. And the only ingredients in here are dry roasted peanuts and salt. This can't be beat. What a wonderful bargain. And it's real peanut butter. You have to stir the oil in. It doesn't have anything extra added to it. So for $1.99, definitely look for this at your Trader Joe's. Now, two things I've got here are absolutely wonderful and very versatile. You can certainly use them to make a peanut butter and jam sandwich, but there's a lot of other ways to use them as well. And this first one is a wonderful apricot preserve. I really liked this because it was organic and it's reduced sugar. Whenever I look for jams that I've not made homemade, and if that's something you want to learn how to do, I have a lot of videos on making jam, all kinds of jam, low sugar, regular, no pectin, with pectin, and I'll be sure to link to those. Not only do I show you how to make homemade jam, I also show you how to water bath can it. It's very easy to do. It makes it shelf stable, and my videos start right at the beginning and take you through the entire process, so they're perfect for the beginner. But as I've been mentioning all along, it's always nice to have backups so that when your home canned items run out, you still have something on your pantry shelf. Now this is an organic reduced sugar apricot preserves, and it's 15.2 ounces, so almost a pound, and it was $3.69. Now I felt that this was a good buy because it has 40% less sugar than most jams, and the first ingredient is the fruit. The first ingredient is the organic apricots, and whenever I buy jam, I always look for jam that has fruit listed as the first ingredient, so that way you know you're getting a really fruit-rich jam. And this has 24 servings if you use 1 tablespoon at a time. And 1 tablespoon, because of the reduced sugar, is only 30 calories. And not only is apricot jam wonderful when making a peanut butter sandwich, apricot jam has a nice tang to it, which really offsets this more sweet flavor of peanut butter. But it's also wonderful for cooking with. You can use this in marinades. You can use this to top chicken. It's wonderful if you have boneless, skinless chicken breasts and you want to make a quick dinner and you just saute them up with a little apricot jam. It's scrumptious. Put over rice. You're going to really enjoy that. This is also great to add into salad dressings. You can just mix in a little in those salad dressings that you want to bring a little sweetness to the flavor. And also, and we'll talk about this when we get to this next jar, it's really delicious on any type of sandwich. So don't just reserve it for your peanut butter sandwiches. You can use this in place of mayonnaise or mustard, whatever you might be making when you're making a savory sandwich like a turkey or a roast beef. Try using a little apricot jam. It's delicious. So $3.69 for organic jam where fruit is the first ingredient. This was a good buy. Now this is an 11-ounce jar of fig butter, and it was $2.99, which I thought was a very good buy because they have to put a lot of figs into here to make fig butter. And like the apricot preserves, the first ingredient is figs. And I highly recommend that if you see this at your Trader Joe's, this is definitely worth getting. This is often more expensive than $2.99 because it's considered somewhat of a gourmet food. Not only can you use this with your peanut butter, it's also wonderful, much like the apricot preserves, on a savory sandwich. Fig butter on a turkey sandwich is going to take your turkey sandwich to a whole new level. And the nice thing about fig butter, it's very nutritious. It's high in fiber, which is something we always seem to need more of in our diets. And it's also high in magnesium, which relaxes our body and is good for our heart. And it's also high in potassium, which helps balance our salt out. Now I just want to go back to the apricot preserves for a minute. I picked apricot preserves because that's what I like and I find it very versatile in my traditional foods kitchen, but they also did have other flavors. I believe they had strawberry and raspberry, both organic, both low sugar, both with fruit as the first ingredient. Item number 7, coconut sugar. As you start transitioning away from a processed foods kitchen to a traditional foods kitchen, and you want to get away from white sugar and start incorporating some more whole sweeteners into your cooking and your baking, coconut sugar is a wonderful option. Coconut sugar is very flavorful, and it really just tastes like a sweet sugar. It doesn't taste like coconuts, which makes it very versatile in your cooking. Plus, it's very rich in potassium. And again, potassium is always something wonderful for us to work into our diets whenever we can, because we always seem to have plenty of sodium, but not enough potassium. And the potassium helps balance out our sodium. Sodium being salt. We often have a lot of salt in our diets, but not always enough foods rich in potassium. So coconut sugar is great for that. And this is an organic coconut sugar, And it's a 16-ounce bag, which means it's 1 pound, and it was $3.99, which was an exceptionally good buy based on what I've been able to find coconut sugar for at other stores. So definitely keep an eye out for this. Plus, the shelf life, or the best buy date, is well over from a year from now. It's about a year and a half from now. And personally, I would almost classify this as a forever food. So as long as it's not opened and you've got this in your prepper pantry, this is wonderful to stock up on. Category number 8, tea and honey. Now, if you saw my superfoods video, you know that I stressed the importance of making sure that you have a good selection of herbal teas and honey stocked in your working pantry and or your prepper pantry. Now, this is an organic ginger turmeric tea, and ginger and turmeric are wonderful spices. Ginger has amazing properties: antiviral, antibacterial, antimicrobial, and so on and so forth. And turmeric is well known as an anti-inflammatory. So if you have inflammation, turmeric is wonderful to incorporate into your diet. Now, as I mentioned, this is organic, and this box contains 20 tea bags, and the cost was $2.79, which I thought was excellent. Now, this is 16 ounces or 1 pound of a creamed multifloral New Zealand honey, and this was $3.99. Now, this is not the famous Manuka honey, but that's a lot more expensive. So if your budget is very tight and you're not incorporating Manuka honey right now into your working pantry or your prepper pantry, I think this is just a wonderful option. Honey has wonderful antibacterial properties, so it's always a good thing to have in your pantry. You can take this straight to soothe a cough or a sore throat. You can mix it with a little apple cider vinegar, like we talked about before, specifically the raw apple cider vinegar, to also help soothing a cough or a sore throat. You can also take this after a meal if you tend to be plagued with indigestion or reflux. It can be very soothing to the esophagus. And it's also just delightful mixed into tea. And as I shared earlier, how I like to use a little olive oil on my skin, honey is also wonderful for your skin. You can put just a little, you can dilute it with a little bit of water, put it on your face, let it sit for a little bit. Honey is wonderful for drawing moisture into your skin. So a little honey and a little olive oil, and you're all set. You don't need to buy expensive beauty creams. Now, technically, this isn't a tea, but I was so impressed with this. This is a 100% ginger juice drink mix. Now, this is not fresh ginger that's been ground up and dehydrated and made into a powder. This is actually the juice from the ginger. So this is more intense. And if you've ever seen those little, I think they call them ginger shots, it's in a bottle and it's a little fresh ginger juice, maybe it's an ounce or two at most, it's very expensive. But this package, it has 7 packages in it of this ginger juice drink, was only $2.99. Now what you do with this is you take the packet and you can dissolve it in 12 ounces of water, and the water can be hot or it can be cold. So this is really going to give you a good zing of ginger juice. And as I shared, it's rich in antimicrobial, antibacterial, antiviral properties. So by taking this, if you feel a cold or a flu coming on, scientists tell us it may help lessen our symptoms. So for 7 packages, 7 12-ounce servings of ginger juice for $2.99, this can't be missed. This is a really good bargain. Category 9. Pasta. Now, Trader Joe's had a wonderful selection of pasta, and they had a lot in stock, at least the day I went shopping. And this is a 1 pound bag of pasta. This is orzo pasta, which we'll talk about in a minute. But this was 99 cents. So the pasta was a little more expensive than at Walmart. You know, initially at Walmart, when I bought pasta, it was 82 cents for a pound, pretty much any pasta that you wanted. But when I went back a few weeks later, the price had jumped to 92 cents a pound. So this at 99 cents a pound is fairly close to the Walmart price. But what I liked about this was that they had orzo, and that's a wonderful pasta that I like to keep on hand. Orzo almost looks like rice, but it is made from durum semolina, so it is a pasta. But you cook this in boiling water just like you would pasta. It's ready very quickly, and then you can toss it with pretty much anything you want, just like you would pasta. And I love to serve this tossed with butter and herbs or some butter and chopped up vegetables and serve it as a side dish. And never be afraid of using pasta in a traditional foods kitchen, because as I mentioned, it's made from durum semolina flour. That's better than white flour, because durum semolina flour is the middlings, basically, when durum flour is milled. So when they're milling out a lot of the things that are nutritious to make more of a filtered, so to speak, durum flour, all those little middlings have nutrition in them. And it's those middlings that are used, it's sort of a byproduct of making the flour, are used to make pasta. I meant to say when the flour is sifted. I think I said filtered. So I always like to have a nice selection of pasta in my pantry, and I always like to cook it al dente. Don't cook it to where it's mushy. Al dente means to the tooth. You want to have some bite to your pasta, because when you cook it al dente, it's lower, if you follow these sort of things from a dietary standpoint, it's lower on the glycemic index. And foods that are lower on the glycemic index have a lower effect on blood sugar. So if that's something that you're watching and something that you're concerned about, always cook your pasta al dente. And this particular orzo pasta has a best by date through almost the end of, it's actually November, but almost the end of 2024. So this is definitely something that you can stock up on, because it does seem like the price of pasta is increasing. It seems like each time I go to the grocery store or Walmart, I don't know, I'll have to watch it at Trader Joe's to see if it goes above 99 cents. But it does seem to be increasing rather regularly in price. So the fact that you've got a best by date on this through 2024, the end of 2024, this is definitely worth something stocking up on, because I think it's a good buy. Item number 10, or items, fresh produce. And I also have a few thoughts on some jarred items that I bought at Trader Joe's. The first item I want to talk about is this green cabbage, because I thought this was such an exceptionally good buy. Now, if you saw my Walmart video, I shared with you a head of red cabbage that I bought, and it was 99 cents a pound. The heads of green cabbage, any cabbage, and they were all basically the same size, but the head of any green cabbage at Trader Joe's was just $1.69, and this weighs about 3 pounds, so this was really a bargain. And here I've got 2 pounds of Gala apples, and this was $2.99. The Galas were the best priced apples there, and I felt they were very competitively priced and a good bargain at that. And apples play so many roles in the traditional foods kitchen, just like the cabbage. You can cut this up and use it in salads, coleslaws, and you can also ferment it, all the better. And I show you how to do that in my sauerkraut video. Apples are not only great for snacks and to be used in recipes, you can use them when you make apples and pork chops, or you can use them to make homemade applesauce, but the best is you've got the scraps left over to make your raw apple cider vinegar. And here I've got 5 lemons, and these are organic, and they were only $1.99. For 5 organic lemons, I thought $1.99 was a very good price. And remember, you want to use every part of the lemon. You not only want to use the juice and the pulp, you also want to make sure that you're using the zest. And you can feel exceptionally comfortable about that when your I was going to say onions, when your lemons are organic. And even when you've completely exhausted them, save them in your freezer and throw them into your bone broth, because any acidicness that's left in them will help draw out the minerals in the bones in your bone broth. Here I've got 3 pounds of russet potatoes. So 3 pounds and organic, and they were $2.99, which was a very good buy for 3 pounds of organic potatoes. You may have seen in my Walmart video that they had Yukon Golds at a similar price, but for organic russets, $3.99 a pound. Definitely a good buy, definitely something you want to look for if you're shopping at Trader Joe's. And remember, if you bake these, great, and you're eating the skins, great. But if you peel them and boil them, say to make mashed potatoes, save those peels and the water that you boiled the potatoes in, because that water is very rich in starch, and it's a wonderful water to use when feeding your sourdough starter if you've got one going. The yeasts love to gobble up all the starch in that water, so don't discard it. And if you peel your potatoes before you cook them, save the skins, boil them separately, and then save that water and use that to feed your sourdough starter. Now I've just got 2 items in jars here that I want to talk to you about. One are these delightful Cornichon pickles. They're like little gherkins. And the other is pickled beets. When my son was young, we used to love to grow cornichons, any little type vegetables, you know, kids love. And then they're very easy to pickle. And you can also home can them, and you can water bath can them, which is nice. However, if that's not something that you do, these were a very good buy. This is a 12-ounce jar, and it was only $2.99. Now you might be saying, whoa, $2.99 for pickles. Yes, that may seem a little pricey. However, cornichons are considered a delicacy, and they really are quite delicious. And at my grocery store, they're twice the price. So if you like cornichons and you want to put them like on a little charcuterie platter, how they're traditionally served, I really feel this is a nice thing to keep in your pantry. Second are these pickled beets. Now this jar of beets is 15.5 ounces, so almost 16 ounces, almost a pound. Now if you don't grow your own beets, or you can't get a good buy on them, say for a case at the farmer's market, I certainly understand if you like beets and you like pickled beets, buying them in a jar like this. Even if you do grow beets or buy them for a bargain and pickle them yourself and home can them, which I do and I show you how to do in a video, I always recommend, like we've talked about throughout this video, having backups. It's always a good thing to have backups, especially if your family likes something. And my family really likes pickled beets. Beets are also very nutritious. They're rich in a lot of vitamins and minerals, and something that's definitely important to have in a traditional foods kitchen, especially important to be serving in our meals. So definitely consider stocking this in your pantry. Now Trader Joe's also had fresh beets for sale, and it was a fair price. It was an average price. But generally, if you do want to pickle your own, it's better if you grow them or can get a bargain on a case at your farmer's market, because chances are for $1.69, it might cost you that to buy 3 small beets and then go through the process of pickling them and maybe home canning them. So I did see this as a relatively good buy. And speaking of produce in general at Trader Joe's, other than the cabbage, I found most of the produce, whether organic or non-organic, to be fairly close in price with what I was able to find at Walmart. Also, the reason I don't have any frozen fruits and vegetables here on display is because, also very similar in price to Walmart, I didn't feel the need to buy things that I didn't necessarily need at the moment. My freezer's pretty packed. But they did have a selection of frozen fruits and vegetables. And again, the prices maybe a little on the higher side compared to Walmart, but relatively close in price. But if you really look at everything and you compare prices to maybe a Walmart or your local grocery store, I think you can definitely find some good bargains at Trader Joe's. And the bonus items? Sweets and treats. Well, something that I couldn't get over when I was shopping at Trader Joe's is how many goodies they sell. Their selection of chocolate was nothing short of amazing, and all of these bars of chocolate were anywhere from $1.79 a bar to $1.99 a bar. And most of these are organic or fair trade. And I thought that price was wonderful. I've got 2 73% cacao chocolate bars here, and the higher the cacao percentage, the better it is for us, because chocolate, we're so lucky that this is the case, is very rich in nutrients, and it's especially high in magnesium, which I talked about before, is very good for the heart. So I think chocolate is more than just a goodie. Chocolate, I think, might have to be something that we always have to have in our pantries. This particular brand is 85% cacao, very nutritious. And then what I've got here, this really intrigued me. This has some caffeine added into it. So it's got those like little crunchy coffee beans mixed in. So I think this might be very fun to enjoy, especially if you're a coffee lover, or maybe if you're feeling a little sleepy and you don't have any coffee and you need a little boost, that can be kind of handy to have on hand. And then this has 72% cacao. And this is Belgian dark chocolate. And this is fair trade and organic. I have a feeling this is going to be delicious. So ranging in price from $1.79 to $1.99, I think these are an exceptionally good bargain. Now these were a little on the pricier side. These were $3.89, but I've really never seen them, and I've never seen them less expensive, at least chocolate covered almonds of this quality. For anything less than $3.89, and these just sounded wonderful. They're dry roasted almonds, then they're drenched in dark chocolate and then covered with sea salt and turbinado sugar. And turbinado sugar is a little more nutrient rich than white sugar. So I thought, well, I think that we just need to have these in our pantry. And this is 10 ounces. So for $3.89 for 10 ounces with some really wholesome ingredients, I thought that this would be nice, especially if you're having folks over and you want to put out kind of a lovely little treat. This will definitely fit the bill. Now these are old-fashioned cinnamon graham crackers. Now you can definitely make graham crackers homemade. I haven't made a video for you on that yet, but I'll have to in the future. They do require a little more work, and it's the same like with I've talked about as to saltines. So when it comes to graham crackers or saltines, I certainly understand if you want to buy these already made for you to stock your pantry. And I really liked these because they're made with wholesome ingredients. And for the full pound, they were $3.99. So I'm okay with that. Often you'll see boxes of crackers or cookies, and it may be 4 or 5 ounces, and it'll be $3.99 or even higher. But a full pound of wholesome graham crackers for $3.99, definitely worth getting at Trader Joe's. And something that I thought looked exceptionally scrumptious are these potato chips that are fried in olive oil. This is wonderful because a lot of potato chips are fried in damaged oils and I just have to avoid them. But I love a good potato chip every once in a while. And potato chips are the kind of thing that they're a little involved to make, slicing in the mandolin, and then if you can fry them up in lard, wonderful. But it's really something that you may only do once or maybe twice a year. But maybe you're more industrious than me. But it can be a little bit of a messy job. So when you find something like this, and potato chips aren't something we eat all the time, it really is a treat. But the ingredients literally are just potatoes, olive oil, and sea salt. And it's a 7-ounce bag, and this was $1.99. There are a lot of potato chips at my grocery store that are not as wholesomely prepared as these, and they're a lot more than $1.99 for a bag this size. So this I thought was a real bargain and a wonderful, kind of a nice treat to have, especially if you're doing maybe sloppy joes. I've got a recipe for you on that, and with homemade hamburger buns, and having some potato chips fried in olive oil for $1.99. This is a definite good buy. Now, if you'd like more information on how to stock your prepper pantry and how to store your food to extend its shelf life as long as possible, as well as some more wonderful grocery hauls for real food at a bargain price, be sure to click on this video, and I'll see you over there in my Texas Hill Country kitchen. Love and God bless.